The Story of My Life, Isaac Newton. Chapter 1. A Small Village Boy, 1643. Imagine a time long ago, when horses clattered on cobblestone streets and castles loomed over quaint villages. The year is 1643, and a crisp winter wind blows across the English countryside. In the heart of a small village named Woolsthorpe, a curious little boy named Isaac Newton is born. Woolsthorpe wasn't grand, but it held a magic all its own. Lush green fields stretched as far as the eye could see, a constant reminder of nature's beauty. The villagers, friendly and kind, knew each other by name. I came into the world a tiny baby, so small that people worried I wouldn't survive. But I was a fighter. I grew strong, even though my father, sadly, passed away before I was even born. My mother, Hannah, later married a kind man named Barnabas, but I lived with my grandmother for a while too. Life on a farm wasn't really for me. Most people in Woolsthorpe worked the land, planting seeds and raising animals. But I wasn't very good at it. I much preferred taking things apart to see how they worked inside. I loved building things too, like kites that danced in the wind and little windmills that spun with the breeze. One of my favorite things to do was to climb the big oak tree near my house. From the top, I could see for miles around, all the way to the rolling hills in the distance. Sometimes I would pretend to be a sailor on a ship, exploring faraway lands. Other times, I would just sit and watch the clouds drift by, wondering what secrets they held. Even though I wasn't very interested in farm work, I loved helping my mother around the house. I would fetch water from the well, carry firewood inside, and help her mend clothes. Sometimes, she would tell me stories about knights and brave heroes, which I found exciting. She also taught me how to read and write, which opened up a whole new world for me. The village had a small church with a tall, pointed steeple. Every Sunday, we would all dress up in our best clothes and go to listen to the priest tell stories from the Bible. I liked learning about God and all the amazing things He created. It made me curious about the world around me, like why the sun shines and the rain falls. One day, a traveling salesman came to Woolsthorpe. He had a cart full of amazing things, like shiny buttons, colorful scarves, and even a small telescope. I was mesmerized by the telescope. He let me look through it for a moment, and I could see the church steeple way up close, like it was right next to me. I begged my mother to buy me one, but telescopes were very expensive, and we couldn't afford it. But it planted a seed in my mind, a curiosity about seeing things far away. Life in Woolsthorpe was simple and peaceful. Everyone knew each other, and we helped each other out whenever someone needed it. Even though I wasn't very good at farm work, I felt happy and safe in my little village. But as I grew older, a different kind of adventure awaited me, one that would take me far away from the green fields and friendly faces of Woolsthorpe. Chapter 2. Off to a big school called Cambridge, 1661. When I turned 18 years old, which feels like a very long time ago now, something big happened. Everyone in the village was surprised when I was accepted to go to a very important school called Cambridge University. It was a long way away from my small village of Woolsthorpe, in a big and busy town full of lots of people. Imagine going from a place where you know everyone and everything feels familiar, to a completely new place with streets you've never seen before and people you've never met. That's how I felt when I first arrived at Cambridge. I felt small and a little lost, like a tiny boat in a big ocean. But even though I was scared at first, there were also exciting things to discover. Cambridge had huge buildings made of stone, with tall towers that reached high into the sky. There were shops selling all sorts of things, from books and paper to food and clothes. And there were even people from other countries, speaking different languages. The most amazing thing about Cambridge, though, was the university itself. It had big libraries filled with walls and walls of books. There were books about math, with numbers and shapes that seemed to tell stories. There were books about stars and planets, with pictures of the faraway sky. There were even books about the human body and how it worked. I spent hours every day wandering through these libraries, picking up books and trying to understand what they were saying. It wasn't always easy. Some of the words were very big and hard to pronounce, and the ideas were sometimes confusing, but I was determined to learn. The university also had special rooms called classrooms, where teachers would gather students to explain things. They would talk about history, about the stories of people from long ago. They would talk about languages, different ways people communicate with each other. And of course, they talked about math and science, the subjects that I loved the most. My teachers saw how curious I was and how much I wanted to learn. They encouraged me to ask questions, to explore my ideas, and to never give up on something I didn't understand. They gave me special problems to solve, puzzles that challenged me to think in new ways. The more I learned, the more I realized how much there was still to discover. Living in Cambridge was very different from life in Woolsthorpe. There weren't any fields to play in, or stars to look at directly from my window. But there were new friends to make, other students who were just as curious about the world as I was. We would spend hours talking about what we learned in class, sharing our ideas and helping each other understand difficult things. One of the biggest challenges of living in Cambridge was figuring out how to live on my own. In Woolsthorpe, my mother would always cook meals and make sure I had clean clothes. But here, I had to learn how to cook for myself, how to wash my own clothes, and how to manage my money. It wasn't easy at first, but I slowly learned how to take care of myself. Looking back, going to Cambridge was a big turning point in my life. It took me away from the familiar and comfortable world of my village and threw me into a completely new and exciting place. It was scary at times, but it also opened my eyes to a whole universe of knowledge waiting to be explored. And that's exactly what I was determined to do. Explore, learn, and discover the amazing secrets of the world around us. Chapter 3. The Plague and Apples, 1665. Just as I was getting settled into the exciting world of Cambridge University, a dark cloud fell over England. A terrible sickness called the plague began to spread through the country. The plague was very contagious, meaning it could easily jump from one person to another. People became very sick, with high fevers, chills, and swollen bumps on their bodies. Many people sadly died from this disease. The fear of the plague gripped the entire nation. Schools and shops closed their doors to stop people from gathering and spreading the sickness. The streets, usually bustling with activity, became eerily quiet. People stayed locked inside their homes, afraid to venture out. Sadly, Cambridge University wasn't safe either. To prevent the spread of the plague, the university had to close its doors. This meant I couldn't attend classes anymore, couldn't explore the libraries filled with books, and couldn't meet up with my friends to discuss exciting ideas. With the university closed, I had no choice but to return to my quiet village of Woolsthorpe. It felt strange going back after being away for so long. The village seemed smaller and quieter than I remembered. Many people I knew were staying indoors, afraid of the plague. Even though it wasn't the ideal situation, there were some good things about being back home. The fresh country air felt good after the crowded streets of Cambridge. I could see my family again. My mother, who was happy to have me back, and my nieces and nephews, who were always excited to play with their older uncle. The best part, however, was the peace and quiet. Away from the hustle and bustle of Cambridge, I had time to think. I could wander through the familiar fields and forests, lost in my own thoughts. It was during this time of quiet reflection that something amazing happened. One sunny afternoon, I was sitting under a large apple tree in my family's orchard. The branches were heavy with ripe apples, their red skin shining in the sunlight. I was lost in my thoughts, pondering the mysteries of the universe, when suddenly, plop, an apple fell from the branch and landed right beside me. It might sound silly, but that simple event sparked a big question in my mind. Why did the apple fall down? Why didn't it fly up towards the sky or sideways off the branch? It seemed so obvious that things always fall down, but no one had ever really explained why. This simple question about a falling apple became the starting point for a major discovery. It made me realize that there might be a force at play, an unseen force that pulls everything on Earth downwards. The stronger the object, the stronger this force must be. This invisible force, I later named gravity. Even though the plague forced me to leave Cambridge, it also gave me the time and space to think deeply and make this important observation. Sometimes, unexpected events can lead to unexpected discoveries. However, the plague wasn't all bad news for my scientific curiosity. Being back in my quiet village, surrounded by nature, allowed me to observe the world around me in a new way. I spent hours watching birds flying in the sky, wondering what kept them aloft. I looked at the clouds drifting by, curious about the forces that moved them. Even the simple act of walking and feeling the ground beneath my feet sparked questions about motion and balance. The plague may have disrupted my studies at Cambridge, but it opened my eyes to the wonders of the natural world right outside my doorstep. It was a time of fear and uncertainty for everyone, but for me, it also became a time of great inspiration and discovery. Chapter 4: Laws of Motion. The plague eventually passed, and life slowly began to return to normal. With the danger gone, I was finally able to return to Cambridge University. There was a sense of excitement in the air as students and teachers alike reconnected after a long separation. The libraries buzzed with activity once more, and the classrooms echoed with lively discussions. I wasted no time diving back into my studies. The question about the falling apple that had preoccupied me during the plague now became my main focus. I spent countless hours researching what other scientists had discovered about motion and gravity. But to my surprise, there wasn't a clear explanation for why things always fall downwards. Determined to find my own answer, I started conducting experiments. I built simple machines using ramps, balls, and weights. I observed how objects rolled down different slopes, how fast they moved, and how far they traveled. Through these experiments, I began to understand some important principles about motion. I realized that an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will continue moving in a straight line at the same speed, unless acted upon by an outside force. This became the foundation of my first law of motion, the law of inertia. Imagine a ball sitting still on a table. It will stay there forever, unless someone pushes it or something bumps it. The ball has inertia, a natural tendency to stay in its current state of motion, which, in this case, is no motion at all. The same goes for a bicycle moving along a flat road. It will keep rolling forward at the same speed unless the rider applies the brakes or turns the handlebars, which are both forces acting on the bicycle. But what about things that are already moving, like a ball rolling down a hill? Why doesn't it just keep going forever? My experiments showed that objects experience friction, a force that slows them down. The rougher the surface, the more friction there is, and the faster the object will slow down and eventually stop. Another important discovery I made was related to force. I realized that the greater the force applied to an object, the faster it would accelerate, or pick up speed. A gentle push on a ball will make it roll slowly, while a strong kick will send it flying across the room. This became the foundation of my second law of motion, the law of acceleration. Imagine kicking a soccer ball. The harder you kick it, the faster and farther it will travel. The kick is the force acting on the ball, causing it to accelerate. The same principle applies when pushing a cart. The more force you push with, the faster the cart will move. Finally, I discovered that forces always come in pairs. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This is my third law of motion, the law of action-reaction. Imagine pushing a wall. You might think the only force involved is your push on the wall. But in reality, the wall pushes back on you with an equal force, even though it might not feel like it. These three laws of motion became the foundation of classical mechanics, the study of how forces affect the motion of objects. These simple yet powerful laws helped explain not just falling apples, but also the movement of planets, the flight of birds, and even the way rockets propel themselves through space. Developing these laws of motion wasn't a quick and easy process. It took years of experimentation, observation, and critical thinking. I made mistakes, faced challenges, and even had to throw out some ideas that didn't work. But through perseverance and a deep curiosity about the world, I was able to unlock some of the universe's secrets. The laws of motion not only changed the way we understand motion, but also laid the groundwork for many future scientific advancements. They continue to be used by engineers to design cars, airplanes, and even spaceships. So, the next time you see a ball rolling down a hill, a car speeding down the street, or a rocket blasting off into space, remember the laws of motion at play, all inspired by a simple question about a falling apple. Chapter 5. Rainbows and Light, 1666 to 1704. The world of science is full of fascinating puzzles, and after unraveling the mysteries of motion, I became curious about another wonder of nature, the rainbow. We all know the sight of a rainbow after a refreshing rain shower, a beautiful arc of colors stretching across the sky. But why does it appear? What causes this magical display of light? My journey into the world of light began with a simple experiment. I took a triangular piece of glass, called a prism, and held it up to a beam of sunlight coming through a window. Instead of a single ray of light passing through, the prism bent the light, splitting it into a beautiful band of colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. This surprised me. Sunlight, which appears white to our eyes, is actually made up of many different colors combined. The prism experiment helped me understand that light isn't a single thing, but rather a spectrum, a range of colors traveling together. Each color has a different wavelength, which is a way to measure the distance between the peaks of the light waves. Red light has the longest wavelength, while violet has the shortest. When sunlight passes through a prism, the different colors bend at slightly different angles, causing them to separate and reveal the rainbow spectrum. This discovery wasn't enough for me, though. I wanted to understand how rainbows form in the sky. Rainbows don't appear out of nowhere. They need specific conditions to be visible. After some thought, I realized that raindrops act like tiny prisms. When sunlight shines through a raindrop, the light bends and separates into its different colors, just like with my glass prism. Imagine millions of raindrops in the sky after a rain shower. Sunlight streams through these raindrops, bending and separating into colors. But here's the trick. For us to see a rainbow, we need to be positioned at the right angle relative to the sun and the raindrops. The separated colors only reach our eyes from a specific spot, creating the beautiful rainbow arc we see in the sky. This explains why you can't touch a rainbow. It's not a physical object, but a play of light and water droplets. The rainbow appears wherever the sunlight meets the raindrops at just the right angle, and as you move, the angle changes, making the rainbow seem to move too, even though it's really in the same place relative to the sun and the rain. My exploration of light didn't stop with rainbows. I also built my own telescope, a tool that allows us to see faraway objects in the sky with greater detail. Unlike traditional telescopes that used lenses, mine used mirrors to reflect light and create a clearer image. With this groundbreaking invention, I could observe the moon, stars, and even planets much closer than ever before. Studying light and its properties opened a whole new world of scientific inquiry. It helped us understand how we see the world around us, how colors are created, and even the nature of light itself. The next time you see a dazzling rainbow after a storm, remember that it's not just a pretty sight, but a testament to the power of light and the wonders of science. Chapter 6, A New Chapter, Science and Beyond, 1696. By the year 1696, my work on motion and light had earned me a lot of respect. People from all over England, and even from other countries, recognized my scientific achievements. The king himself was impressed with my discoveries and even knighted me, calling me Sir Isaac Newton. Becoming a famous scientist brought many changes to my life. I received invitations to give talks and presentations about my work at universities and scientific societies. People would come from far and wide to hear me speak about my ideas and theories. While I enjoyed the recognition and the opportunity to share my knowledge, I never let it distract me from my true passion, scientific exploration. My curiosity about the world remained as strong as ever. However, alongside science, another area began to capture my attention: history and religion. Since childhood, I had been fascinated by stories from the Bible and the history of humankind. I spent a significant amount of time studying ancient texts and exploring different interpretations of religious beliefs. This wasn't a complete departure from science. In those days, many scientists also studied the Bible and saw it as a source of knowledge about the universe. In addition to my scientific pursuits and historical studies, I also took on a new responsibility, becoming the warden of the Royal Mint. The Royal Mint is the place where the king's money, or coins, were made. It was a very important job, and I took it very seriously. Imagine being in charge of making sure all the money in the country is real and not fake. I had to ensure the coins were made from the right materials, had the correct weight and size, and displayed the king's image accurately. It was a big task, but it also gave me a chance to use my math skills and attention to detail in a different way. Being warden of the Royal Mint also meant dealing with people from all walks of life, from skilled workers who crafted the coins to merchants who used them for trade. This experience helped me understand the importance of money in society and how it played a role in everyday life. Balancing my work as a scientist, historian, and warden of the Royal Mint wasn't always easy. It required careful planning and a lot of hard work. However, I found that each area of study enriched the others. My scientific knowledge helped me understand the historical context of certain events, while my historical studies gave me a new perspective on the natural world. For example, my research on gravity helped me understand the movement of planets and stars described in ancient texts. Similarly, my study of the Bible made me think about the origin of the universe and the forces that shaped it. Everything seemed connected somehow, and I enjoyed exploring these connections and finding new ways of understanding the world around me. Even though I never married or had children of my own, I found joy in spending time with my nieces and nephews. They would often visit me, and I loved sharing my knowledge and experiences with them. I would tell them stories about the stars, show them simple scientific experiments, and even read them interesting passages from history books. Another important part of my life during this time was my involvement with the Royal Society. The Royal Society was a group of scientists and scholars who came together to discuss their discoveries and share ideas. Being a member of this society allowed me to connect with other brilliant minds and learn from their work. We would meet regularly, discuss our research findings, and conduct experiments together. It was a stimulating environment that encouraged collaboration and innovation. Through these discussions and interactions, I was able to refine my own ideas and gain new perspectives on scientific problems. Though my life took a different path than some other scientists who may have focused solely on scientific research, I remained deeply passionate about science throughout my life. From unraveling the mysteries of motion and light to exploring the vastness of the universe, science offered me a way to understand and appreciate the world in a whole new way. And that, for me, was the greatest reward of all. Chapter 7: A Life of Quiet Contemplation, 1704 to 1727. As the years passed, I, Sir Isaac Newton, began to crave a quieter life. The hustle and bustle of London, the constant stream of visitors, and the demands of my various roles started to feel overwhelming. By 1704, at the age of 61, I decided to step back from some of my public responsibilities. This wasn't a complete retreat from the world, but rather a shift in priorities. I resigned from my position as Warden of the Royal Mint, allowing me to focus more on my personal studies and scientific research. London, with its crowds and commotion, was no longer the ideal environment for quiet contemplation. So, I decided to move to a smaller town called Kensington, just outside of London. Kensington offered a more peaceful setting, with green spaces and a slower pace of life. Here, I could truly focus on my work without the constant distractions of the city. While I still enjoyed occasional visits from colleagues and students eager to discuss my work, I preferred spending most of my time in solitude. My days were filled with reading, writing, and conducting experiments. I delved deeper into mathematics, exploring complex equations and theories. Imagine a world of numbers, shapes, and patterns, all connected by invisible rules. That's what fascinated me about mathematics. It was a way of understanding the world through logic and reasoning, a different kind of exploration from the experiments I conducted in science. Even though I wasn't actively seeking out new discoveries like before, my mind still buzzed with curiosity. I continued to refine my existing theories and explore new applications for my laws of motion. These laws, which explained how objects move, became the foundation for many advancements in engineering and physics. One of the things I enjoyed most during this time was working on my book, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, often shortened to Principia. This book, published in 1687, became a cornerstone of classical mechanics. It laid out my laws of motion and explained the concept of universal gravitation, the force that attracts all objects with mass towards each other. Principia was a complex work filled with mathematical equations and scientific explanations. It wasn't easy reading for everyone, but it became a must-read for scientists and scholars interested in understanding the physical world. This book cemented my reputation as one of the greatest scientific minds of all time. Despite my preference for a quiet life, I still held the position of president of the Royal Society for a while. The Royal Society provided a platform for me to interact with other scientists and stay updated on the latest scientific advancements. Even though I wasn't actively conducting groundbreaking research myself anymore, I took great pleasure in mentoring younger scientists and encouraging them to explore their curiosity. I would share my experiences, offer guidance, and sometimes even challenge their ideas to help them think critically. My nieces and nephews continued to be a source of joy in my life. They would visit me regularly, and I cherished the time we spent together. I would answer their questions about the world, tell them stories about my own life experiences, and encourage them to pursue their own interests, whatever they might be. As I grew older, my health began to decline. However, my mind remained sharp, and I continued to ponder the mysteries of the universe until the very end. On March 31st, 1727, at the age of 84, my journey on Earth came to an end. Even though I am no longer here, my legacy lives on. My laws of motion and theories about gravity continue to be the foundation for our understanding of the physical world. Scientists and engineers use them to design everything from airplanes and rockets to bridges and buildings. The next time you see a satellite orbiting Earth, a ball bouncing on the ground, or even a rainbow after a storm, remember the work of Isaac Newton. My life may have been a quiet one in its later years, but the seeds of curiosity I planted continue to grow and inspire new generations of scientists and explorers. Chapter 8: A Legacy Beyond Time. Sir Isaac Newton's life ended in 1727, but his impact on the world continues to this day. His ideas, though developed centuries ago, are still the building blocks for many things we see and use in our everyday lives. Imagine a world without his laws of motion. These laws explain how objects move, how fast they accelerate, and how forces interact with them. Thanks to Newton, we understand why a ball rolls when you push it, why a rocket blasts off into space, and even why we stay grounded when we jump. His law of universal gravitation, the idea that all objects with mass attract each other, is another cornerstone of science. It explains how the moon stays in orbit around Earth, how planets move around the sun, and even the way tides rise and fall in the oceans. These ideas might seem complex, but their applications are all around us. Engineers use Newton's laws of motion to design safe and efficient bridges, airplanes, and cars. Satellites that orbit Earth and send us signals rely on the principles of gravity. Even the GPS system in your phone uses these scientific concepts to pinpoint your location on Earth. Newton's work wasn't just about explaining the physical world. He also made significant contributions to mathematics, developing a branch of math called calculus. Calculus is a powerful tool used in many fields, from engineering and physics to economics and computer science. The telescope he invented, using mirrors instead of lenses, opened a new window to the universe. It allowed astronomers to see the night sky with greater detail, leading to incredible discoveries about stars, planets, and galaxies far beyond our own. Beyond his scientific achievements, Isaac Newton left a legacy of curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. He showed us the importance of asking questions, conducting experiments, and thinking critically about the world around us. This spirit of scientific inquiry continues to inspire generations of scientists, inventors, and explorers. Even though some of his ideas have been refined or expanded upon by other scientists over time, the core principles established by Newton remain foundational. He was a pioneer who dared to question the way things were and paved the way for future scientific advancements. Today, when we look at the night sky, marvel at the speed of a car, or simply jump for joy, we can appreciate the lasting impact of Isaac Newton's work. His legacy is a reminder that even a simple question, like, why do apples fall down, can lead to groundbreaking discoveries that change the course of human understanding. So, the next time you see something amazing in the world, take a moment to think about Isaac Newton, the curious boy who grew up to become a scientific giant. His life story is a testament to the power of curiosity, hard work, and the never-ending quest to understand the universe around us.